It's a 30-minute express escape. Get a dose of destination knowledge, inspiration, and storytelling, showcasing phenomenal travel opportunities. I'm your host and number one travel expert. I'm destinationwhatever.com. Want to know what it's like to take a trip up to the Canadian Arctic, or if you want to know a bit more about expedition cruising? Well, I have a guest speaker here tonight who can talk to us exactly about that travel style and that concept because he's with a company that does that and he has some personal experience doing that. Our guest tonight is Nathan Bowler, and he's with Adventure Canada, and he's going to talk to us about a trip that he did. It was just recently, actually. It was from St. Pierre, the French islands off the coast of Newfoundland, all the way up to Iqaluit, sailing around some amazing coastline in Newfoundland and Labrador and the Canadian waterways. So we're going to hear about his stories, about the company that he's with. And Nathan, would you like to just simply get us started and take us away?
Yeah, thank you, Dave. So let me just open up the screen here. Yeah, I'll get the show started. Thank you, Dave from Destination Whatever, for inviting me as a special guest. I love to talk about Adventure Canada expeditions. I fell in love with the company back when I used to be a travel advisor, and I got the opportunity to experience one of the expeditions. And that first time was actually back is up in Greenland and the Canadian Arctic, 13-day expedition. And since then, I've been on many since, and I continue to love it. So it's funny, I actually used to work with Dave at the same agency, just different cities. I'm based out in Ottawa, and he's, out there somewhere down east. But it's a pleasure to work with Dave in a new capacity. And I also love his company, Destination Whatever. He has some really inspiring videos. So this is a shot of me in Labrador in Hebron up in the Nunatsi-Avut region. And I'm going to mention the Nunatsi-Avut region a lot, as well as Labrador, because it's a truly underrated part of the world, and we're one of the only cruise lines that take people there. So I'll dive into the who, what, where, how, and who did it of Adventure Canada, just so you know a bit about us and our story as an award-winning Canadian-owned expedition company. I'm going to show you where we go with a focus on Newfoundland and Labrador. And I'll mention how to get yourself booked if you want to journey onto one of these voyages. So this is why you would travel with a company like Adventure Canada. We're Canadian owned, and as far as I know, we're the only Canadian owned small ship expedition cruise operator in the Arctic. We go a bit beyond the Arctic as well. And again, I'm going to talk about one of the beyond Arctic places, Atlantic Canada, namely Newfoundland and Labrador. This image in the background is at Battle Harbor in Labrador. And many of the images in this presentation are going to be my very own photos from a recent trip. And a few photos will be from some of the other expert photographers who we've worked with on the expedition team. So you can see this is Liz Carlson photo here, also known as a young adventurous. And so a couple other points here. We're also family run, and you can really feel that on board. Our team of specialists, they sit with passengers during meals. When we're not sitting with you at meals, we're approachable anytime, whether on the deck or the lounge or out in the community visits, the landings that we operate off the ship. The team is highly specialized. So a team of guides and specialists cover an array of topics, like from geology to history to local culture. If you don't think you're into history or biology or rocks and birds, you get into it because these scientists and specialists, they're passionate about what they do. They often have their full-time jobs as researchers or as documentary makers sometimes, and they come onto our expeditions, once or twice a season to kind of showcase that expertise. There's a lot of the team to passenger ratio. For every seven passengers, we typically aim for like one specialist for every seven passengers. On top of that is the ship crew, which is equally important, taking care of the bar, kitchen, housekeeping, driving the ship, etc. So if you include the ship crew, it actually goes to an even higher ratio. Um, and plus, it's mentioned there, we've been operating for 35 years, so we know what we're doing and you're in good hands. We've established a lot of long-lasting relationships with the communities in this part of the world. And you can see that on the excursions when you get off the ship. We do our walking tours with local guides, for example. You can see the partnerships that we've built, and it's a very beautiful thing. So a couple other, actually, this is the same points here, just gonna pump it up. So we're also family friendly and we're also solo travel friendly. Whether you want to travel with your grandkids or your grandparents or your parents or your kids or just your partner, or you prefer to travel alone, you're welcome to join Adventure Canada. You can very easily make friends on board with the team and with the ship crew and with other passengers. It's due to the small ship size and the camaraderie that happens organically on board. There's no minimum, no maximum age. As long as you're in the spirit of learning and having a truly fun trip, then it's the trip for you. And any activities that we operate on board or off the ship, we make it all about choice. You can get as active or as leisurely as you want to get. We often have people in their 90s join us, as well as people as young as 3 years old join us, and everyone in between. So I want to make note that we travel through Indigenous homelands where we go. So in Canada, we travel extensively through the Inuit homelands of Nunavut, Nunavik, and Nunatsiavut, as well as those of the Innu, Beothuk, Mi'kmaq, Huron-Wendat, Abenaki, Wolastoqiyik, and Haida nations. We also visit Indigenous homelands around the world, including what today are called Greenland, Costa Rica, Panama, Patagonia, and Ecuador. Each of these places have their own complex colonial histories that we strive to learn about. Simply acknowledging our presence in these territories and expressing our thanks is not enough because the founding institutions that built modern day Canada, for example, they're responsible for the decimation of languages and traditional practices and decimations of whole cultures. So, and those institutions perpetuate injustices that carry on into today. Will companies like ours benefit economically and socially from their policies? So through our regenerative practices and policies, we aim to use travel as a source for good in the world by contributing as much back to our host communities as possible. To do this, we listen to their requests, partner with local organizations in the regions we travel to. An example of this is on our recent Northwest Passage itinerary. We partnered with the Indigenous-led organization Legacy of Hope Foundation. If you don't know Legacy of Hope Foundation, they provide education on residential schools and survivor stories. We've had their educational banners in our ship lobby for guests to observe and learn. Also raised funds for organizations like that through our onboard auctions and events. The other example, on my recent journey to Newfoundland and Labrador, we partnered with the Nain Community Food Bank, also known as the Taqwaqatik Food Bank, to donate food, as well as to raise money with our onboard auctions. So Nain is the northernmost community in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. It sits in the Nunatsiavut region. A beautiful community to visit as well, and you'll see that in a few slides. So when we go and operate an expedition to the Arctic or into Newfoundland and Labrador, there's often a partnership with some kind of local cause to give back. You'll find that a significant amount of the expedition team on board, they'll be local and indigenous to the region. This has always been important to me because with the local specialists and guides from the area, they can show their home the way that they intend to show it. And that makes someone like me who's not from the area, I feel very welcomed to the area. Just to kind of show that, I'm going to segue into that expedition that I recently went on, the Newfoundland Labrador itinerary. And this was the team on board. So there were 36 expedition team members plus 109 ship crew and 163 passengers on board this itinerary. This is a photo I took with my cell phone on board the ship. So the 36 expedition team members were like overflowing off of our expedition team bulletin board. And as a guest on the cruise, this is where you can see the bios of each expedition team member at your leisure, which cover all kinds of topics like geology, photography, Inuit culture. 8 members of the team were from Nunatsiavut, the Inuit region of northern Labrador, and there were additional members from the island of Newfoundland. So again, having that part of the team from the area really makes the trip more meaningful in a lot of ways. And here's the actual team on that expedition. This particular slide is not the entirety of them. There are about 3 more slides, but I want to quickly introduce you to the characters who are part of my Newfoundland and Labrador journey, starting with Jason Edmonds. He was the expedition leader he also hails from Nain in Nunatsiavut. So he's Inuk and he grew up there. It's his home. He proudly showed it to guests on the voyage, and he got to see some of his friends and family when he landed in Nain on the trip. And you have more of a leadership team like Deanna, the assistant expedition leader. She's also a celebrated marine biologist with an impressive background. And there's Kaylee, program director on board. Danielle, also on the leadership team. David Newland was the host for the cruise. He's also a wonderfully talented musician and just an all-around good guy. There's Marissa and Chris, who are the kayak guides, as well as Zodiac drivers, and Krista from the office team, who did the onboard sales aboard the ship. Plus, they have a background in biology as well. And then, yeah, part two of the team here, there's Amber. We always have a medic on board as well as a ship doctor on the ship crew. So you're in good hands as a passenger. So Amber was the medic. Lauren, very good RMT. So you can get your massages on board. Mark, who supported the gift shop on board and a pleasant part of the overall expedition team. Michelle, archaeologist, and she's worked in Nunatsiavut for a significant amount of time. She brought that knowledge with her for guests. And there's Pierre. So we had another marine biologist on board. He did many presentations and workshops with guests. You got Jean Knowles. She's the best. She has knowledge on environmental preservation in Eastern Canada as well as cultural history. And Roger, who's worked with Parks Canada and also brings that naturalist knowledge for guests. And you got Dr. Mark Terry, very inspiring man with climate change expertise. Yeah, and there's a couple more here. So Dr. Lynn Mormon stepped in with geospatial knowledge of the region, highlighting the unique geology of Newfoundland and Labrador. And Randy, Inuit cultural educator hailing from Nain as well. There's a whole slew of Inuit culturalists that were on the team. So there's Derek there, who's from the region, and Joe, he knows the Torngat Mountains like the back of his hand. Heather, probably one of my favorite people I've ever met. She's wonderfully kind, has a beautiful energy, and she also hails from the region as well. You got Tom from Labrador with a history of cultural knowledge in the area. Adam Russo, who's a great singer. He was a musician on board, and he's a Zodiac driver and bear monitor. So he has a polar bear monitor license. But his music is quite something. And if you're a lover of great songs, you can follow him on Spotify. He's quite talented. And you got Todd, the expert photographer on board, helping passengers to curate their photo skills. And you got Laura, who drove Zodiacs and led many of the hiking options off the ship. Barb, who hails from Newfoundland and is always excited to show her home province. Jim, also a Zodiac driver and a musician. These people are like they're all very multi-talented yet down to earth. We got Garnett, who hails from the region, is an Inuit cultural educator. Daryl on the expedition team as well. He's a master Zodiac driver, and actually I spent a lot of time with him practicing my own Zodiac skills. So thank you, Daryl. And Leslie, who also supported the gift shop on board, which is a huge task. Lucas, master Zodiac driver, and Inuk from Nunatsiavut as well. Well, he's only 18 years old. But he's like way ahead of me in life skills. Like this kid knows how to fix engines, build cabins, hunt. Like what was I doing when I was 18? I was like sitting around playing video games. So Lucas is incredibly talented. And there's me on the team. So my job was to look pretty and be handsome. And Olivia, part of the office team, supporting the expedition team on board. Her background is with marketing, and you got Alex from the office team as well, background in sales support. Our ambassador with Royal Canadian Geographic Society, Professor John Smole, who is super knowledgeable about the Arctic environmental issues. Every expedition, we typically work with a researcher in residence, and we had Sierra there enacting research for U Ottawa involved in climate-related risk and sustainability. We actually had two researchers in residence on this particular expedition, which was exciting. So Jacob conducting research from Dr. Mark Mallory's lab, studying the birds in the region. And then, yeah, I think it was last but not least, but Wayne, master Zodiac driver and bear monitor, and also he's Inuk and hails from Nunatsiavut, the very impressive background. He used to manage the Torngat Mountains National Park base camp, which is incredibly fascinating. So he has a lot of great stories. And yeah, so you can see that the expedition team is highly robust, and this is kind of like what it looks like on different expeditions. So that was a team on my particular expedition in a nutshell. And I wish I could spend more time, but there are like 36 of them, so there's a lot. But imagine you're on board and their jobs are to hang out with passengers and guests as well. They might be doing a presentation or hosting a fun, informative workshop with guests or driving Zodiacs in which they're still very much interacting with guests on the Zodiac. So the team really makes the trip, and you can become fast friends with the team and the ship crew and other passengers on board very easily. So our home for that expedition was the 198 passenger Ocean Endeavor. So 198 passengers, it's a small, friendly town vibe on board. I love small ships because you can get into fjords and bays and inlets that the bigger ships cannot easily get into. And there are all kinds of workshops, presentations, events happening on board when we're on the ship. So you can make it as engaging as you like. Everything is optional. You can see the polar dip, Inuit welcome, Arctic games, some things on the deck there, like Arctic yoga. Some cruisers are enjoying the hot tub, you name it. I also want to mention that the kitchen, the restaurant on the ship, They can cater to any dietary requests, whether gluten-free, vegan. They do a very good job at that. We also source the food locally as we go as much as possible. So many of the communities that we stop in will buy food provisions so you can try the local cuisine, like Arctic char, for example. So all that to say, for the vessel, everything you want on the vessel is on the vessel, but the main point of Adventure Canada expeditions is getting you off the ship, seeing the communities, exploring landscapes, learning about the places and the people. We're going to places that are truly unique and off the beaten path. This was a photo I took in Indian Harbor, Labrador, looking at an archaeological site with Tom Padden, explaining the significance of the site. So you can see where we go here, and I'll dive into the Newfoundland Labrador itinerary, but just want to highlight the core expeditions that we typically operate. We focus on the Arctic, Atlantic Canada, Europe, and a bit beyond. Some years we work with other tour partners and do expeditions to Japan, Antarctica, Galapagos, for example. So again, if any of these expeditions sound fun to you, which I think anyone who goes on them will have fun, they can be booked through my friend Dave here from Destination Whatever. Um, yeah, I want to thank Dave once again for inviting me to chat about our expeditions and showcasing this awesome type of travel. So this is the expedition that I wanted to show you. I was there back in July this year, and yeah, as you saw, I was on the expedition team. I'm considered an office staff, so my job, aside from looking pretty, was actually hosting a group on board, and I was providing support to the expedition team. So that support ranged from helping passengers on and off the Zodiacs at the landing sites, as well as coordinating guests in the mudroom of the ship to make sure everyone had their life jackets on snugly and were geared up to go onto the Zodiacs. I also co-led 2 hikes off the ship with Laura, who was on the team. So there's always a lot of behind the scenes happening on board a trip like this so that we make sure guests can feel comfortable, safe, and have the time of their lives. So this expedition, it actually technically started in Saint-Pierre and Miquelon, but we did have a charter flight component that can be booked as an option with your travel advisor. So starting in St. John's, Newfoundland. So you can actually arrive in St. John's. It's recommended to, have booked a pre-night or two in St. John's, which I did myself. And then you're in good hands. You can join for the charter flight to meet the ship in Saint-Pierre. So yeah, this is me. When I got to St. John's, I got screeched in and became an honorary Newfoundlander. This was at Christian's Pub in St. John's on George Street. Highly recommend this if you're not from or have never been to St. John's, or heck, if you live there, go and kiss a cod again. Why not? It was really fun. It's a great city as well, St. John's. And so then we had the flight to Saint-Pierre and Miquelon. And you betcha that we had activities organized for guests to enjoy on this French island off the coast of Canada. There's always, so there was a cultural dance ceremony, which a lot of guests went to watch. And you had time to explore the town of Saint-Pierre on your own, it's full of charming shops and cafes. I myself, because I was on the expedition team, I was helping guests boarding the ship. So I didn't get to fully explore the island much myself, but guests who were coming back were beaming with joy from that day as they came onto the ship after exploring Saint-Pierre. So it's a very amazing place to be, and not many Canadians have even thought to go here, even though it's right off the coast. But politically it's part of France. So interesting geography, fun fact. Here's a shot of me at the St. Pierre dock, so you know I was actually there. I just didn't get into the town, but I will next time. And you can see the French culture is alive and well just at the dock with the flag colors. So day 2 to day 3, the thing I love about our expeditions is that every day you wake up to the voice of your expedition leader coming over your cabin speakers. The voice comes over all the passenger cabin speakers saying, "Good morning, good morning, good morning." And it's a gentle tone, so it's not to jar you awake. And typically, our expedition leaders have a much more soothing voice than I do. And so this was the voice of Jason Edmonds on this particular trip. So Jason then proceeds to tell you where we are, the weather that day, what's going on that morning. And so that morning, it's going to be a visit to Chaleur Bay, which is a beautiful fjord in southern Newfoundland's coast. And this is what we end up doing. Amazing landscape here that is unbelievable. If you live in a city like me, the fresh ocean air is hitting your lungs. And this is, I should say, like an interior city. I live in Ottawa, so I don't really get the fresh ocean air, but this really hits your lungs here. This is, by the way, a zodiac, so you'll see more of the zodiacs as we go throughout the expedition. We use them to get to and from the ship on various outings. And still in Chaleur Bay, this was my zodiac driver for that afternoon, Garnet. I wanted to show you how high the cliffs of this fjord go. Like I thought I was in Jurassic Park, but I was in Newfoundland. We never know what the weather can be, so it was a misty day this day. In the afternoon, we ventured over to a community called Francois on the southern coast. I loved seeing Francois with the mist coming down from the mountains. It was so beautiful. But this is what Francois looks like on a sunny day. This is a picture from another expedition. So on a sunny day or a misty day, it's equally beautiful. Again, we never know what the weather is, but we always try to visit this community. It's one of the few remaining remote outport communities in Newfoundland. There's no road access to this town. There's no air access to this town. It has 63 people, according to one of the last censuses. Because there's no road access, there are no cars here. You can see the narrow roads in the town, but the residents typically get around by walking or with an ATV. So it's a truly unique place to see. You can only see it by ferry or by cruise ship, and we're one of the only cruise lines that go here. At the community center, there was live music and local food that we organized with the community, so you can get a bit of that, a bit of a Newfoundland kitchen party, and you can explore the town on your own. Plus, some guests were doing hiking trails around the town, led by some of our specialists on our team. So lots to do and see here. You can get as active or as leisurely as you want to get on these outings. And Francois, but if you want to ever look at it on Google Maps, if you're a geography nerd like myself, it's actually spelled Francois. It looks like it's Francois, but it's actually pronounced Francois by the locals. So this has been, yeah, 2 great days so far on the ship. And yeah, so on the ship, you're always meeting like new people, making new friends. In the evening when we get back on board, there's typically an evening gathering. So we always go through the highlights of the day, and everyone loved Francois. It was such a beautiful town. The next morning on the expedition, we're journeying around the corner of the island of Newfoundland, and we reach Garaya Bay. This spot is also just magical. It also gives those Jurassic Park kind of vibes. We scouted for opportunity to go on land, and we did get on land. So there were various themed walks, like a birding walk, a photography walk, depending on your interest. As well as those wanting to get more active, we had hiking options available. I was practicing my Zodiac driving while here, so it was a great day and a great bay as well for Zodiacs. Speaking of the Zodiacs, just to show you more about how they work, if you've never been in a Zodiac before, you learn everything you need to know on day one of the expedition, how to get in and out. Becomes quite easy after the second or third time. Just involves stepping up and down a step into the Zodiac and then getting out. You just kind of swing your legs over to the side, and there's always three of us team members there to assist you and make sure to give you the sailor's grip for your arms. This photo just shows a testament to the age. So the main demographic with Adventure Canada is between ages of 55 to 75, but there are always a handful of people in their 80s and 90s who join, and people as young as 1 year old who join. So families are welcome, people of all ages are welcome, solo travelers, couples, groups, families, you name it. There's something for everybody. The reason that we use the Zodiacs is because these iconic places we go to do not often have the facilities like the cruise ports that you'd find in other places. So we use the Zodiacs to operate these landings to explore the land and the communities. I'll mention as well the blue jackets you'll see throughout the photos. You get to keep those expedition jackets. They're included in the price of your expedition. They're awesome jackets. We also provide complimentary rubber boots and walking sticks and life jackets to borrow on each journey, so you don't have to pack those on your own. So continuing on my trip here, so that day in the afternoon, we got to Gros Morne National Park, very famous national park. I once again I was on shore duty here, but some folks opted into getting their hiking legs on and got to see the beautiful windswept vistas that Gros Morne is known for. Lots of photo ops here. Can basically create your own like postcard business if you travel with us. Oh yeah, so we all get to stretch our legs, no matter where we were around Gros Morne, soaked in the extraordinary views. And this place is also a geologist's dream, even if you don't think you're into rocks. Like I used to see a rock, and all I knew was that it was a rock. But after hearing people like Dr. Lynn Moorman speak on geology, you learn that rocks can tell history and stories. So, for example, here in spectacular tablelands here in Gros Morne, it's a 600-meter plateau. And it forms one of the world's best examples of exposed mantle that is normally found below the Earth's crust. So the mineral-rich rocks here, they support very little life, and it kind of makes the tablelands a very eerie landscape. And you learn all these tidbits from the geology that you learn on board. So it's quite fascinating. This is a photo by me on that day. So I was around the shore in a town called Woody Point, which was gorgeous. And here's a snapshot of the lighthouse with flowery foliage in front. So after Gross Mourne, after Woody Point, guess where we get to? We cross over to the Labrador side, and this was wonderful to me. I'm a geography buff, like Dave Wentworth here from Destination Whatever, and so seeing the different shades of the province, we went from the southern coast, which was rugged and beautiful and covered in vast amount of trees, and then as we get more north, it seems to get even more rugged, less trees. Many people don't really understand the scale of the land here. Newfoundland is actually huge. The province with Labrador is gigantic, and from north to south covers a huge chunk of North America, actually. If you took the coastal, like that coastline, like north to south, the distance, and you kind of applied it south from St. John's, you'd actually be somewhere around the Carolinas in the southern US. So it's quite a big distance. And so we get to this rugged beauty with the fascinating history called Battle Harbor. It's a hidden gem in the province, a restored 19th century fishing village. It's actually located on a small island in the Labrador Sea, and it was once the salt fish capital of the world. So I felt like I was walking around here, I felt like I'd stepped back in time. This place, it really immerses you in the village's history as you explore. And the village, it's been lovingly restored to its original state. So you can walk in the footsteps of traditional fishermen and merchants and experience life as it was in the 1800s. And so that was a day full of history. And then we wander the southern Labrador coast and get to a place called Indian Harbor. This is an eerie place because they're the foundations of former buildings here, some still standing, some not. It was a community back in the late 1800s where a hospital was set up, and you can get the entire story from the culturalists on the expedition team. And as much as it's a history buff's dream, it's also a photographer's dream, even a painter's dream. So this is painter Andrew Sucre, who was on the expedition with his materials covering the landscape here on his canvas. It's the kind of place you can connect with yourself. What really hits me in these places is the silence. It's not like fully silent. Like there's the wind, sometimes the sounds of birds, the waves, but all that together, the wind and the waves, it's like the hum of the earth that you're hearing, and it's truly epic. You're surrounded by the scenery. The photo doesn't do it justice. When you're here, the scenery is all around you, and all of your senses are just awakened. Another shot of Indian Harbor. So I was really getting into my photography here. You can see this area had all kinds of archaeological artifacts spread around. So that's Indian Harbor in southern Labrador. This was an interesting thing that happened while on the ship. So we were passing by the recently discovered shipwreck of the Quest, which was the last ship that Sir Ernest Shackleton had been on when he passed away. And it was discovered only a few weeks ago from this expedition by a shipwreck hunting team, which was led by the Royal Canadian Geographic Society. And so because of that, we had researcher and geographer Antoine Normandy do a presentation in the main lounge via Zoom on how the team researched the possible whereabouts of the vessel, how they tracked it, how they found it. It was fascinating because it involved them combing through like physical archives and records of Shackleton, things that you can't just they're not on the internet at all. Like this made me think of Indiana Jones type research where they're traveling to places, putting the stories and the archives together to find where the ship could be and how they found it. So that was awesome. This is the kind of thing that you get to be part of on these Adventure Canada expeditions. So then, yeah, we keep going north. We visit the thriving community of Nain. It's the most northerly community in Labrador, and it's the administrative capital of Nunatsiavut, the Inuit region of northern Labrador. We got to see a cultural ceremony in the historic Moravian church here, and we learned about the town's history, listened to the brass band. We had local guided walking tours to explore the beautiful community. This photo is of the it's a stunning new cultural center by the waterfront in Nain. Sadly, when we were there, it was closed due to reconstruction inside. But normally, the cultural center showcases history, language, the culture of the Inuit of Labrador. It's a community gathering place. But it's quite a dynamic visit to this town. Many of our expedition team members, I mentioned it, they call Nain home. We also saw this guy from the deck of the ship as we pulled into Nain that day. So, according to our marine biologist, it was a minke whale, and this photo was snapped by Todd Mintz, the photographer, with his lens on his camera. So we ventured north, passed through a place called Mugford Tickle. Yeah, Mugford Tickle. So I learned that a tickle is a narrow water passage between two islands. So that's a Newfoundland geography term. And yeah, there's dramatic cliffs as we pass through this tickle. And then we once again step back in time to the historic site of Hebron, which preserves a Moravian mission station dating back from the 1830s. So you'll learn the history here. You'll listen to the stories shared by our guides. You'll meet there's former Hebron residents and their kin who continue to visit the site and hunt and fish nearby. So they were there and they welcomed us. This was a photo inside the church here in Hebron, so you can explore the rooms and you can feel the history when looking and exploring this place. So, and this was one of my favorite days. We got to explore the Torngat Mountains National Park base camp. This is a highly remote and isolated area tucked away in the Torngat Mountains. Some of the staff that managed the base camp came out to greet us and show us a tour of the camp. Plus, there were many hiking options available around the area, led by our specialists. In the Torngat Mountains, the Inuit of Nunavik and Nunatsiavut, they play a key role as partners in the management of the Torngat Mountains National Park. So many see the park as a portal for better understanding of Inuit culture. The word Torngat, it's derived from a word Tongate, meaning place of spirits. Sort of the Inuit travel to connect with higher powers, and it's not hard even for a visitor to kind of feel the power of this place. But here's a photo taken from the landing site at the Torngat Mountains Base Camp. Lucas from the team had his opportunity to go fishing, and he did catch a lot of fish. You can see the beautiful mist coming down from the mountains over there. Another beautiful shot of the remote base camp there. This is me going into one of the domed cabins here. Makes me look like a huge guy. I'm not actually that huge. I'm 6'0", but the doors are just short, but it's kind of like a Doctor Who's TARDIS where we go inside. It's actually quite roomy on the inside of these domed cabins. So when we're in the area, be on the lookout for wildlife and birds. We spotted caribou off in the distance. There's more than one. So this is my zoomed in shot from my cell phone. So apologies for the graininess. All I brought was my cell phone, but I got close enough that it wasn't too grainy if I showed it on my cell phone. I'm more of a enjoy the moments kind of guy, so I try not to take too many photos. I don't like lugging all the equipment. That's just me though. But yeah, we saw like this caribou, and then off in the distance, there's a whole herd of caribou running. It was the first time I've seen caribou, which was amazing. And then, yeah, on to the next day, we got to this beautiful and spiritual spot, Rama, on the Nunatsiavut coast. So I don't even need to explain the beauty here. You just take in these two photos. I got a couple more photos to show you Rama. It was a relocated community here. So you can see the foundations of the buildings that used to be here. You can connect with Michelle, the archaeologist, who would talk about the history and the archaeology here. And there's a gorgeous waterfall at Rama as well. You can go underneath it actually, and just yeah, it's quite beautiful. Another shot of the landscape. There's another building foundation just right over here. We make sure to tell guests, where to avoid stepping so they don't disturb any of the archaeology. And yeah, the mist, coming down from the mountains here. So I just want to show you these incredible shots of this place. And again, the pictures don't do it justice. You just got to imagine like you're here and you feel that power of the earth and the sounds. The geology, again, you don't think you're into rocks until a geologist tells you about the rocks and the stories behind them. You can see the different pigments and layers on these rocks. Yeah, I sure took a lot of photos that day here in Rama. So yeah, this is the next day we headed to Eclipse Bay, another geology shot here with a really unique rock that I saw. So here's Wayne, who was scouting ahead of our hike as a bear monitor because this is polar bear territory after all. He was keeping us safe. Yeah, sweeping vistas here in Eclipse Bay. I like the layers of clouds in front of the mountains there. It's always really cool to see that. Eclipse Bay has a gorgeous canyon with rapids and waterfalls carving its way through. So we got to see the rapids here. We actually took zodiacs up to the base of the waterfall at the end of the canyon. You can see, yeah, here we are closer to the raging waterfall, and you can really, yeah, you start feeling the mist spraying you here, and then even the zodiac, like as the zodiac driver is driving up the canyon, like you can feel the water, like the power of the water is actually kind of pushing the zodiac back, and it was pretty cool. The zodiacs are like they're motored boats, like they're pretty powerful, but the waterfall is just kind of like almost pushing it back. It was really really neat. So you can always find time to connect with yourself. You can, I took a nap on the spongy, mossy tundra here, and Wayne was watching for bears while I took a quick 5-minute shut-eye. So yeah, it's quite fun being on the land. So yeah, we ventured north into North Arm, which is a beautiful fjord. And again, I brought my cell phone, so my zooming in capability wasn't great, but you can see the red chairs just over here on the beach at North Arm. So these red Adirondack chairs can be found in every national park in Canada, and they had them here in North Arm. You can kind of see them there on the beach. We go through a lot of fjords. We ventured into Nakvak Fjord, and here's where we saw polar bears for the first time on the expedition. So I actually took a photo with my cell phone through the telescope of one of the guests on board. This is the polar bear you can see off in the distance with the telescope taking a nap on the coast. And our team on board, they're very good at spotting these guys from incredible distances. Yeah, we saw like another one that afternoon as well, off in the distance as well. So yeah, quite magical to see polar bears in their natural habitat. So that was exciting to see, and yeah, again, always a magical moment. And then yeah, we ventured into Martin Bay, did a sunset Zodiac cruise here. Martin Bay is interesting because there was a Nazi weather station here during World War II. It was called Weather Station Kurt, and it wasn't discovered by Canadian authorities until 1977, like many years after the war. So the actual station itself, like, was taken to the Canadian War Museum in Ottawa. So there's no remnants of it left here anymore. But just a very interesting piece of history. The Nazis kind of snuck into the coast here to do their spying during the war. So yeah, and this was also the day that we offered the polar plunge for guests and for the team. So Amber's there, the medic on board, and that's me jumping in. I love doing this. It's scary every time, but you get a shot of whiskey when you come out from the water, from one of the bartenders on board, so it warms you back up. Many guests will go back in line and jump like 2 to 3 times and get 2 to 3 shots of whiskey. It's kind of funny. I'll usually just do it once, and then that's it for like that expedition. Yeah, it's all about choice. So we reach the end of Labrador's coast. We're getting into an island called Killinick. We also visit the Resolution Islands, which is in the Hudson Strait. So the geology here gets even more unique and rocky and almost Mars-like. Our geologists will have you like raving about rocks in these places. Yeah, it crosses the Hudson Strait, and we get to Iqaluit at the head of Frobisher Bay. It's Nunavut's capital. Population of nearly 8,000 people, and there's many things to do here. We got to go on locally guided walking tours. Actually, it was a kind of a van and walking tour. So the van kind of took us around different spots, different vans that we had. And then this is a shot of Sylvia Grinnell Territorial Park just outside Iqaluit with its sweeping windswept vistas and the river rapids here. So yeah, at the end of the journey, we transfer to the charter flight. So we had a charter flight heading to Ottawa from Iqaluit for those wanting to take an easy direct flight back to southern Canada. And so that was the expedition. And yeah, I was blown away by Labrador particularly. Like many of our past passengers that I've spoken with on other expeditions have always said Labrador is like their like fan favorite for our expeditions. And now I see what they mean about the place. It's truly an underrated region of the world. It's rich with history and culture. The landscapes are just unbelievably humbling. So to recap some of those highlights you can see there, I put them in some bullet points. It's getting out onto the land, onto the Zodiacs to see the Torngat Mountains and seeing the stunning views around Nain, the northerly community there, discovering the history of the region, like in Battle Harbor. And yeah, we saw 2 polar bears, we saw caribou, many Arctic birds, the minke whale. So chances for wildlife. Getting that taste of Europe off the coast of Canada in Saint Pierre and experiencing the remote Newfoundland fishing villages like Francois. So, and I do want to also mention that we don't run that exact Newfoundland Labrador itinerary every year. Typically, we do it every second year. Typically, we do usually operate a Newfoundland circumnavigation every year, which does like a round trip St. John's, and we typically operate a Greenland and Labrador itinerary every year. So I just want to highlight that we might not do that exact itinerary every single year, but we always do go to Newfoundland and Labrador in some capacity every season that we operate. So yeah, if you're inspired by that and you want to get yourself to experience this kind of trip, this is how you book. I mentioned it before. Your travel expert, Dave, can take care of you. You can reach out to him here. Adventure Canada is just one component of your overall trip. The importance of working with a travel advisor, an expert like Dave, is that they'll package everything together for you: flights, travel insurance, any pre and post hotels or pre and post trip components. Like maybe you want to do a tour in St. John's before you join the cruise. So that's the importance of working with a travel advisor, that you can package it all together and he's your go-to for everything before, during, and after your cruise. And yeah, all this to say, people love nature and wildlife, but ultimately people love connecting with other people. That's like a fundamental human condition. That's why we've been successful with our expeditions over the years. We offer that people-centric, family-run approach on our expeditions that you can't find anywhere else. So I encourage you to take a small ship voyage, and I hope you choose to do it with us at Adventure Canada. You'll be welcomed into the Adventure Canada family. So yeah, thank you for hanging out with me with my story, and yeah, back to Dave.
Thank you so much, Nathan, for your presentation, just taking us on that journey. I think to places that some of us didn't even think that you could go. These are some parts of Canada's geography that, well, are just lesser explored. And we saw that with the landscape. We saw that with the small towns. I'm just trying to imagine what it would be like to go to a town like Francois. It's probably interesting for the visitors, and then it's probably interesting for the people who live in a community like that as well, too. So it's just two-way tourism, and it's just the sort of stuff that I'm all about here at Destination Whatever. But if I could slip into my Newfoundland, buy you tickets around the bay. So look, everybody, this was tonight's presentation. We're going to have a recording and it's going to be available on the website, so you can check that out. And if you like learning about places and you want to learn more about the world, I have a really exciting presentation coming up on December 2nd in a couple of weeks that I'd like to let you know about. I have Kristen here coming in from Silver Seas, and she's going to talk to us about that company. But also she's going to talk to us about a region that she visited that's really special. It's called the Kimberley, and you might not have heard about it. It's the northwest part of Australia. So it's like the remote part of the outback, as if the outback wasn't remote enough. And the reason why you're going to want to go down to the Kimberley is to check out the sensational landscapes here, the vivid Aboriginal culture, the watering holes, the story time. Even if you've been to Australia and you're thinking, oh, I'd like to go back to Australia, but what would I go back to Australia for? It's the Kimberley. So we're going to talk about that December 2nd. You can get all the information at destinationwhatever.com/the Kimberley. And also, I just would like to remind you to sign up for my newsletter. I have my weekly newsletter coming out, which has all sorts of inspirational travel, information on travel deals, lots of those happening right now. And of course, links to some of the video and the content that's coming out of Destination Whatever on travel. So you can visit destinationwhatever.com/travel news, and you can take a look at the past newsletters and sign up to get on the list for upcoming newsletters. And of course, my social media, you can take a look at any of those: Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube. And lastly, as Nathan was just saying, keeping in touch via my website, destinationwhatever.com. I got it all there to hook you up. You can get my contact information. You can book in a 30-minute Zoom with me, take a look at past recorded talks, or again, see what we have coming up for future travel presentations. All right, Nathan, before we go, I have a joke for you. What does a polar bear use to catch fish?
I don't think I've heard that one before. So what is it?
It's bare hands.
That's true.
Yeah, it is. Well, look, this presentation was wonderful. Thanks so much for taking us up there. And for everybody else, thank you so much for coming. I look forward to seeing you at an upcoming presentation. Have a good evening. Bonsoir. Auf Wiedersehen.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. This has been a Destination Whatever travel production. Subscribe for all my content. Facebook at Destination Whatever, Instagram at destinationwhatever.travel, and YouTube at Destination Whatever. Or head on over to my website, destinationwhatever.com. I'm your #1 travel expert, helping travelers nationwide explore the world. So get in touch and let's make your travel fantasies come true.